What the? Hmm. So if you probably figured out by now, today we're going to see if CLR will actually clean up these very, very crusty carburetors. So this one's got a ton of ethanol damage. I think I've had this one in another video. It's just shot. There's no way you're going to get it clean. Once you get that level of contamination that starts to adhere to the surface, it doesn't matter how you try to get it out of there. If you scrape it out of there, you're just going to cause rough areas that more garbage can attach to in the future. So it just doesn't really make any sense to try to reuse these. Now, could you and get some good use out of it? It's very possible, but that activity in there with the ethanol fuel will continue to happen at a much rapid pace. So it don't really know how much service time you'll get out of that. The other issue is you just don't know how well you're going to get clean down into those areas that are really tight and small. I can't even get that needle out of the one side. How well does that material or fluid get down in there and break it up? And you can try to run some cleaners through there, pipe cleaner, some small brushes, which I use on these, but it's very, very difficult to know what the actual impact in there. This carburetor is junk. However, I've gotten a lot of comments when I've done these cleaning videos, and the videos especially where I talk about ethanol or the negative effects of ethanol on carburetors in general, that these can be reused. And I've seen CLR pop up probably, a dozen or more times in the last year or so, and I thought, you know what, I've never done it, so let's just try it out and see what happens. This carburetor I'm going to have to try to knock apart. You saw in the opening there that it is completely locked up. No matter what you do to that one, it's shot. I think it had a fire on it one time. It looks like the accelerator pump is a little crusty from that. So we'll try to knock the top off here in just a second and see if we can't get if we can get it apart and at least see what the inside looks like. But I'm very skeptical on this. When you look at the instructions for CLR on the back, it tells you specifically not to use it on aluminum. Now, I am assuming that means because it is going to take off some of the surface finish, the polish. If you use this in a restroom or a kitchen or something where this stuff is really generally most used, I can see that removing shiny finishes or any protective coating that goes on the outside of aluminum to keep it kind of looking a little nicer. So I'm assuming that's what they mean. It's possible that if you use this in short bursts, like a couple of minutes, take the part out that you're trying to clean, rinse it back off, scrub it again, whatever. So we may do that. We may do that with this carburetor and try to get it in and out of there a couple of times. So this is going to be a very long process to do this. One side of me says just drop it in there for 20 minutes, pull it out and see what it looks like. And we may do that on one of these carburetors. The other one we may try a little bit longer process. But I'm very skeptical that the CLR is going to actually do anything. While it does remove, lime and calcium deposits, and we use it here because we have a lot of hard water and we continue to need to clean faucets to keep the garbage out of it. I'm very skeptical that it has the power to remove any of these types of contamination. Now, could I be surprised? Yeah, it's very, very possible, but grease and oil and anything else that might be on these carburetors, I don't know how well it's going to knock out of there. The weighted ball, check valve and weighted ball came out of there, so that's good news. But anyway, let me knock this other one apart, see if we can kind of figure it out, and we'll kind of go over the details of what we're going to do and how we'll test out, see if CLR works. Generally don't remove hardware with a gun, but I'm not going to waste my time with this thing regardless how it cleans up, and I'll show you here in a minute what it looks like on what I'm seeing from the top side. So we'll just try to knock these out and see what happens. Ooh. Well, the answer's a bit of that question. It's hard to see here, so I've already got a bunch of it on the on the desktop here, or on the counter. So it is it's full of I don't know what that is. I'm hoping it's just sand and foreign material that got in there. But I don't know if you can see, but that weighted air valve is welded in there. So let's see if we can get that out. Wow. Phew. Well, I don't know if that's coming out of there. Well, it acts like it, but it's actually because it is rusted through the shaft on that one side. I think I may have broke it free there. Yep. Good grief. Alright, this is the one that's going to be in there for 20 some minutes or whatever, but I've never seen one that bad before. So, yeah. I'll tell you how bad it is right there. It's just rusted through. This one, I am not quite sure what happened to it. I'm going to guess by the look of it is this probably sat somewhere. It's got some ethanol damage in here. You can kind of tell. I'll get you some close-ups of it. That is that type of contamination, but at some point I'm going to assume this thing sat full of water. And goodness gracious. But the throttle plates are jacked. They're welded to the side of that aluminum. There's nothing you can do with this one. So this one will be a good test to see how bad the CLR, or how good the CLR works, I guess. It's just shot. So I'm going to knock the rest of the boosters out of it, the nozzle out of it, and see if we can get the electric choke off just for giggles, and we will get it ready to go to the CLR. So let me do that. I'll be back in just a second. Okay, well, most of that came apart. The electric choke's fighting me a little bit. I don't really care too much about that, but yeah, there's a lot more garbage that's in here. Wasn't able to get the throttle plates loosened up at all, so maybe we'll see what happens there. I suspect that if I beat on those any harder, it's going to break that shaft off in there. It's just very rusty. It's what happens with long-term effects of water, and once the ethanol brings and drags in all that garbage in there, it's what's going to happen. So, but anyway, this one's a good combination of ethanol damage and just abuse. So, I think now that we're done that, I'm going to move outside because we're going to use two different things of CLR. This one I'm going to use a little bit stronger concentrate on. You're supposed to mix this 1-to-1 per the instructions. Please read these. And that way, if there's any vapor off of it too, I'm not inhaling that while I'm working here in the shop. And I'm going to let this sit in there for probably 20-30 minutes. The other one here, I guess what I'll do is try to do that every couple of minutes. Go out there and pull it out of the solution, rinse it off, and hit it with a brush, and maybe throw it back in there and see what happens. But even this one's very stiff on the throttle, so it's garbage. But let's do that. We'll move outside, get things set up, get some water going, and see what we got. Okay, I had to run to the store get some more CLR because I realized I didn't have quite enough. So the plan is I'm going to try to mix this one at around 50-50. This one I'm going to go as close to full strength as possible. I'm only going to do the main bodies on these. I'm not going to do any of the other pieces and parts to it. Those are the worst parts of it anyway, so we'll see how it happens with it. So what I'm going to do is get both of these filled up, add the right water mixture, and yeah, we'll give it some time and see what happens. Okay, so that's actually been just a little bit more than 30 minutes for both of them, roughly, but for giggles, we'll just call it 30 minutes. So, 3 bottles of CLR, 3 bottles of water. So this one's a perfect 50-50 mixture. That one was a little bit heavier. I didn't have enough CLR to cover all of it, but we did, I think, 3.5 bottles and maybe a bottle of water. So it's reduced a little bit, but I guess it's strong enough to kind of get the point across. So you saw I kind of hit this one with a scrub brush quite a few times in that bowl that's had more of the corrosion in it. The other one I pretty much left alone. This one I did not do anything with. I just agitated it every now and then. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's obviously a lot of loose stuff that came off, but that it had a lot of loose stuff on it before. This one kind of had a little bit of loose stuff on it, but you can see a little bit of it is broken off. So what I'm going to do is I will get these hosed off, cleaned up and dried off, and then we'll go back to the bench. We'll take a look and see how well the CLR did. Okay, let's see how these turned out. Now, initial just thoughts here, the outside of this one doesn't look too bad. You can definitely tell that CLR certainly removed some of the coating that was on here or whatever was left of this thing. It's not the best looking, but for doing no scrubbing at all, no cleaning at all on here, this turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to. It's actually not that bad. I would be okay with this. You could use some shark skin or something on there to kind of help preserve that a little bit more. But honestly, for not doing any cleaning on this thing and no scrubbing at all, CLR did a good job. There wasn't that much on there. I mean, there was a little bit of gunk on there, but it was just basically the corrosion from the water damage that was on there. So I would call that a win for the CLR there. I wasn't expecting that. So, but yeah, I mean, there's some areas here that'll clean up easily. That would clean up. I would have no problem with that. That gasket base there, material coming off there and cleaning that up should be no problem at all. Inside, on the other hand, well, that's another story. I tried to do a lot of scrubbing on that, on that bowl, as you saw in the video, and it got quite a bit of it, but for the amount of scrubbing that I did, and you can really see some of the scratch marks on there. Again, when I mentioned that earlier, those scratch marks, doesn't matter how deep they are, anything that will allow any foreign material or garbage or junk that the ethanol carries in the fuel, it's going to attach to that with the water, and it's just going to start corroding, and all of this corrosion that you see in here is just going to come back much quicker. Now, I think we could probably clean up some of this stuff and be okay, but yeah, it's certainly maybe a little looser with the CLR, but I don't know how long you'd be able to use this carburetor. It's going to be very, very short-lived with how much more time you could get out of this thing. Let's see if we can get the jets out of here and see if that's a... Oop. Let me see if we can loosen that up a little bit. Yeah, that one's going to be a bit of a problem. Might come out of there with a little bit of love to break that apart. Let's see how secondary is kind of in there. So that's really going to be the determining factor, is if you can get all of that gunk and garbage out of there enough to get the Jetson out of there, because if you can't, there's really no no use to anything at this point. But yeah, maybe a little bit of love there, and maybe a little bit of cleaning. But again, I just don't know. I couldn't confidently sell it to somebody, give it to somebody, because I just don't know how long it's going to last before the ethanol and the water and the corrosion and crap just kind of take over. So it's interesting how well it cleaned up on the outside. I'm very surprised about that. But as far as inside goes, well, I'm going to have to call that one a fail. Now, as far as this poor old sucker goes, well, I don't think a whole lot was going to help it. I'm a little surprised, I guess, that it did kind of clean up. Some of the throttle plates look a little bit better. The float bowls are still just, yeah, nothing's going to happen with those. Let's see if we can get one of these jets out at least. Oh, yeah. That may be in there permanently. I don't think anything's coming out of there. See if we can loosen her up a little bit here. Yeah, we were able to break that one free. Let's see what that thing looks like. Yeah, it's pretty gross underneath there. So, yeah. Not a lot, but again, we didn't scrub it. It was shot. It was gone. There was nothing you're going to do with it. I am a little surprised, though, that corrosion on the outside didn't come off a little bit better. Let's see what that looks like when we hit it with a little bit of a brush. A little wet still from the yeah, not too bad, I guess. Depends how it dries up, but yeah. Let's see if we can move the throttle plates at all now. I think that's a failure. Yep, there's nothing gonna unloosen that mess, but yeah, okay, I guess. But again, this thing was catastrophic. There was nothing that was ever going to fix this. I don't care what it was. So, no knock on the CLR there. Just kind of interesting to see with a worst case scenario. But it did remove a little bit of stuff in there. I'm kind of surprised by that. But yeah, not the greatest thing to start from, but I was more interested to see what it was going to happen with on the outside here. And, I guess that was pretty deep stuff that was on there anyway. You weren't going to get it out of there, but I figured, CLR, that calcium or lime or whatever that was that's attached itself to there from the water damage just wasn't going to come off there. So maybe with a little bit of scrubbing, but yeah. What's the point when the inside looks like that? So what did we learn here? Well, we learned that CLR just wasn't going to be the magic cleaner that I had so many comments on. I guess that surprised me more than anything, on how to clean a carburetor and intake manifold and all the other stuff, but good grief, that thing is rough. But, you know, all overall, I could see some benefit in it, but just as a general cleaner for these types of carburetors and that type of aluminum and the finish, it's just, I couldn't ever think of a situation where I would recommend that to anyone. So if you've got any other comments or suggestions on products, did I use the CLR wrong? Would you have not diluted it? You know, on this carburetor, and God only knows what you're going to do with that thing other than huck it into the dumpster. But yeah, so leave me some comments down below. Let me know what you would have done differently, or if you've got any other things that you think would clean this thing up and put this is actually a Carter carburetor from we did the comparison video between the carburetor and the Edelbrock carburetors. So I hate to get rid of it, but it's just when they're gone, they're gone. And I got to get those jets out of there too before anything happens. So anyway, you got any comments, leave them down below. And yeah, we learned a little bit of something today. So now I know that not to use CLR. Doesn't really work. So anyway, we'll catch you guys on the next one. We'll see you.